Next up are Peggy Evans and Stella Hess. Peggy and Stella.
No horn tonight. I timed us. We're good. You're right. You can't see anything up here. So, thank you, Bridge. So, before we get started with our scripted notes, I just want to say a couple of things. So, first of all, we took a different approach because I'm a control freak. So, we did write everything down. Timed it 4 times, so we're good. No horn blowing. And secondly, the dogs are in the bios because Peggy truly likes the dogs better than she likes people, and that includes me. So, good evening, and thank you all for being here, even though I can't see you. First, and that is very loud. First, we would like to thank the Dallas GLBT and the Outrageous Oral Committee for inviting us here tonight to share our story. The Dallas GLBT is a very important organization and has a mission statement that I think is very near and dear to all of us, and it is simply to gather, store, organize, and present the complete GLBT history of Dallas, Texas. Doing so by capturing our stories, our boxes out of our garage of old ads and newspapers, and just anything else that we have that we need to preserve our history. So it is truly an honor for us to be here with you tonight and share our story of why we did say, I do.
It's already my turn. Okay, in case it wasn't said, she's Stella. I'm Peggy. And it was 19 years ago, earlier this year in June, that we hit 19 years. And since it's already in the bio that we met at the Black Tie, the only thing I'm going to mention is that Sue Weil and Susan Russell were the ones that introduced us, and only because Sue Weil coerced me into working for the auction, since Stella was already on the board. So I will pass it over to you.
Okay. So then fast forward to early 1996 when Peggy and I reconnected while playing softball. The sponsor, I know that's something y'all find hard to believe, but the team that we played on was sponsored by Sue Weil and Doris Sanders Limited. And if you know Sue, Doris Sanders Limited is known for their fine linens. So it was only fitting that the name of our softball team was called Between the Sheets. So, and I don't make that up, I still have the shirts to show you. So I was new to the team that year, and Peggy was the player coach, and when I played, or was allowed to play, I played right field. So that tells you everything you need to know about my athletic ability. But later in June of 1996, we did start dating at the end of the softball season. And no, it was not the traditional lesbian dating. First date dinner, second date a sleepover, and third night a U-Haul. We did, yeah, I played hard to get right. It was about 90 days, I counted it, that we finally did move in together. Showed real constraint there.
Almost 2 years into our relationship in May of 1998, Stella was diagnosed with breast cancer, and we later learned that the cancer had spread to her lymph nodes. We went through this together, hand in hand. Looking back, it probably was the one event that cemented our relationship. We had to think about the what-ifs and the what-abouts, and during that time, we both got to see and understand our true selves. Luckily, we found we both really liked both those people, too. Stella was incredible. She had 2 surgeries, 5 rounds of chemo, and weeks of radiation. All the while, she only missed 5 days of work and never missed a beat on her volunteer work. She never once questioned that she would make it. Always positive, always strong. I do want to share one really funny story about Stella. If you or anyone you know has ever had chemo, you know most people always lose their hair. The doctors always tell you that you could be the one that didn't lose your hair. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen 7 to 10 days from when you start your chemo. So starting on day 6, Stella would wake up by pulling her hair. Not yet! So when nothing happened, she'd remark that, yep, she's going to be that one. Well, on about day 9.5, Stella and I took my mom to a concert in Fort Worth at the Bass Hall with a good friend of ours, Kathy Stewart. And thank goodness I had purchased 4 back row seats. because Kathy nudged me, and at this point, I looked behind the seats, and there were clumps of Stella's hair on the floor. So, so I contemplated, well, should I tell her or should I not tell her? Or should I wait? And I decided I better tell her. So I told her, and she turned around, she looked behind the seat, saw the hair. She's like, oh, well, it is what it is. So we decided at intermission we were going to go get some alcoholic beverages. Or as they said, she put in here adult beverages. It was alcoholic beverages. So we walked out into the lobby, and we're standing there, and this person that we haven't seen in forever walked up to us and said, oh my gosh, it's so good to see y'all. And Stella, I just love what you've done to your hair. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So we explained what happened, and I know the woman was mortified.
So as they say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. But my recollection of the story has Peggy being the incredible one. So when you're sick and diagnosed with a potentially terminal illness, people really don't know how to treat you. They don't know what to say or how to act. It's just awkward. Now, not to say we did not have lots of support, because we did. We had lots and lots of support. But it was mostly from afar, cards and calls. But my Peggy, she was always with me. She never missed a doctor's appointment, a surgery, a chemo treatment, and she drove me everywhere. And that's when we adopted the phrase, driving Miss Daisy. And Peggy still does drive me just about everywhere. So please do not share with her. That's not common, okay?
I know now.
But it was also this time that we realized how important the marriage license and its declarations and protections are. So we had to seek out attorneys. We had to get our wills written. We had to get special documents drawn up just in case the worst happened, that Peggy would have the ability to talk with my doctors and work through any treatments or any care that I was needed. We also hoped that these documents would ensure that my parents and her family would recognize our wishes. We also needed to ensure that our assets that we had collected together, or I had deemed were ours, were protected. And so while I did at all times try to remain positive and strong, I promise you it was those details that kept me up at night and had me worried. Had we been allowed to be married in the great state of Texas, there's no doubt we would have been married 3 years into the relationship. And that little simple marriage license would have saved us so much concern and worry, and we would have certainly slept a lot better at night.
Neither Stella nor I were completely out to our families, friends, and coworkers at this time. We also realized we needed to take care of this business as well. So throughout this experience, we declared our love and relationship to those family members, our dearest friends and coworkers that we wanted to know. Since everything worked out for Stella 17 years ago, we both will tell you it was an incredible experience to have shared together, and one I do not want to ever repeat. But another funny story I want to share is that during this time, Stella's mom, a fundamentalist Baptist minister's wife. Did y'all get that? A fundamentalist Baptist fire and brimstone minister's wife had decided she was going to retire from her job, and fortunately she was an EMT technician, and I needed a caregiver for my mother because she was getting worse. So we asked her if she would be interested in taking this job. She said, of course, and she became my mother's caregiver, one of the best I've ever seen or ever had. Well, one night, Stella and I decided we were going to go over to my mother's for dinner, and we had dinner, and when we left, my mother looked at her mom and said, you know Peggy sleeps with that girl. To which Stella's fundamentalist Baptist mother said, yes, ma'am, I know that girl is my daughter.
So our life went on and returned to normal, and mind you, that's a very relative term. But since that time, we've shared good times, tough times, sad times. Not only did we have to deal with the C word thing, we've had to deal with discrimination at work. And I promise you, had Peggy and I been legally recognized as married at work, my sexual preferences outside of the workplace would not have interfered with my workplace. Go figure. In addition to this, we've experienced the loss of a parent, Peggy's mother, and the loss of a dear niece who was the closest thing to a daughter that either one of us will ever have. I am very proud to say that through each and every one of these experiences, we have grown closer and closer. We have shared some amazing times together as well and feel very fortunate at some of the experiences that we have been lucky enough to share together. Take it back. Oh, I'm sorry. Back to my turn. There are many reasons to choose wisely when choosing a spouse. For the near and long term, the main reason is because you sure enough have to spend a lot of time with that person. So, being compatible, sharing values. That sounded way worse than I meant it. Being compatible, sharing values, and finding someone that brings you joy and happiness is incredibly important. And when Peggy and I met some 20 years ago, I promise you neither of one of us ever dreamed that this is where we would wind up. But in our case, it worked out, and we are two of the luckiest girls alive. So why marriage and why I do?
It is said that marriages are made in heaven and celebrated here on earth. This popular belief continues today because marriage is a very special bond shared between two souls. Whether those two souls are a man and a woman, two men, or two women, the act of marriage represents these two souls who tie the knot. After promising to be companions for a lifetime, for us, our marriage was an important turning point in our life. We believe it represented to our friends and family our physical, mental, and spiritual unison. So during one of the most painful experiences, which was the loss of my niece, Stella and I have faced to date the loss of our niece. We, along with our very best friends, Julie Johnson and Sue Moster, flew to San Francisco and had back-to-back marriage ceremonies on Friday morning, January 17th, 2014. We married first and exchanged our vows, with Julie and Sue being our witnesses, and they married next with us as their witnesses. It was an amazing day. None of us, one of us will never forget. None of us will never forget.
Two very appropriate Freudian slips there. So,
Hey, it's only fair.
Someone once said, happy marriages begin when you marry the one you love, and they blossom when you love the one you marry. The concept of marriage remains the same across the world today, and we all in this room know too well that laws have been formulated to legalize the ceremony and the acceptance. For Peggy and I, our marriage was an act to show our love to each other, our commitment and acceptance to each other, and that it would become a symbol of respect toward each other and the love we share for all to see. It provided a proof to our family, our friends, and associates that we are indeed committed to each other, a symbol of our love, understanding, mutual respect, trust, commitment, and togetherness.
Marriage is a ceremony that reveals and confirms the greatest love there is. If love is a dream and marriage is the extension of that dream, when both dream and reality come together, it is the best thing that can happen to a person. For Stella and I, marriage was something we wanted and something we needed to do. Saying I do is truly one of the best things that has ever happened to either of us.
So here's the bottom line for us. Marriage is love, family, and commitment. Regardless of who you are or how you were made, we should all be free to marry the one we love. So a year or so after acknowledging my full recovery from cancer and wanting to thank Peggy for being the person she is, I purchased this keepsake from HRC that I gave her. And it documents how I feel and sums up why I said I do better than I can say. And it reads, "You are always with me, a partner in life that enhances my accomplishments and helps me realize my dreams. Forever caring, forever sharing, you redefine the qualities of loyalty, devotion, and love. Whether you are listening from the heart or inspiring from example, your contributions to my life surpassed being significant. It's only one line.
No, it's one line, but I can't remember it. Thank you again for allowing us to share our story with you tonight. I love you, Stella Hess.
Thank you. Oh.